I have been putting this one off. Not because the stories are hard to find. They are everywhere. Court filings, depositions, 40 years of four guys telling four different versions of the same afternoon. I put it off because I love this band. And here is what I found. The Betrayals are not a footnote to Mötley Crüe. They are the engine. 10 of them, counting down. Number 10, Moscow, 1989. The manager who got punched, picture it. August 1989. Mötley Crüe are flying into the Soviet Union to play an anti-drug benefit, and they are, for the first time in their entire career, actually sober. That detail alone gets me. The most chemically ruined band in America shows up to a peace festival clean, and it is everyone else who is loaded. The Moscow Music Peace Festival was organized by Doc McGee, who at that point managed most of the bill. Bon Jovi, Scorpions, Skid Row, Mötley Crüe, which sounds efficient until you realize what it actually means. One man was in charge of deciding who mattered most that weekend, and the crew had been told the rules. Stripped down, no pyro, democratic, everybody equal. Then they got told they had been moved down the bill, and then Bon Jovi closed the show, with pyro. And here is the part I did not know until I started digging. Tommy had been sober the whole trip, which means the first drink he had in Russia was the one he grabbed off Sebastian Bach on his way to go find Doc. He found him, he punched him, he told him he was fired on the spot. Bon Jovi fired him not long after too. So Doc McGee organized a peace festival and lost two of the biggest clients in rock over it. Here is the thing that stops me though. The band did not walk out. They stayed and played their set the next day. Sober, furious, freshly managerless, in a stadium in Moscow, at the actual end of the Cold War. And I know how this sounds. A guy got punched, funny rock story, move on. But look at what it establishes. 1989, absolute peak, right on the doorstep of Dr. Feelgood. And the first instinct of this band, the moment they felt disrespected, was to remove somebody, permanently. Same day. That instinct never left them. And somewhere on this list, one of them ends up on the receiving end of it. Number 9. February 1992. He wanted to go race cars. There is one on this list where the story behind it changed how I hear a record I have loved since I was a kid. We will get there. I think it will do the same thing to you. For now, 1992. Dr. Feelgood had made them the biggest band in America. #1 album. Sober. Bulletproof. And then they went into rehearsals for the follow-up, and it fell apart in a way that nobody involved has ever been able to describe the same way twice. February 1992. Vince Neil is out. And then came the statement. The public explanation, put out days later, was that Vince was leaving to focus on racing cars. Racing cars. The lead singer of the biggest rock band in the country, coming off a #1 album, walks away for motorsport. Vince did not let that stand. Talking to the Los Angeles Times the following year, he said the real issue was direction. The band wanted to move toward blues. He was not a blues singer, and he thought it would alienate the fans. Elsewhere, he has called the whole thing a complete shock, said it came down to petty little arguments, and said it was handled badly, that management just let one of the biggest bands in the world fall apart. Nicky has maintained a different version entirely, that Vince quit. And this is the part that still gets me. 30+ years later, there is no agreed-upon answer to a very simple question. Was he fired, or did he leave? Two versions, two men, zero movement. Here is why that matters more than it looks. The betrayal was not the firing. Bands change singers. That is life. The betrayal was the cover story. Putting a sentence into the world that made a founding member look like he chose a hobby over his own band, and you have had a version of this. Not a band, a job, a friend group, a family thing, where the official reason given was not the reason, and everybody knew, and nobody said it out loud. Different details, same feeling exactly. Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story. Number 8. The singer the label never wanted. I need to tell you something about John Corabi. The 1994 self-titled record, the one everybody calls the Corabi album, is genuinely good. Heavy, dark, better than it had any right to be. If you have never sat down with it, sit down with it. It deserves better than its reputation. Corabi came in from the band Scream, and he had a real voice, different from Vince. Grittier, bigger. The record charted top 10. And then it collapsed. It was the first Mötley Crüe album that did not go platinum. But the part I did not know, and this is the part that reframed the whole thing for me, is that the label reportedly never wanted him in the first place. Corabi has described a conversation with management where it got laid out flat. It did not matter who was fronting the band. It did not matter how good he was. The record company had paid for Vince Neil, and anything that was not Vince Neil was not what they bought. The way Corabi tells it, the message was basically, it could have been Paul McCartney up there, and the answer would have been exactly the same. Sit with what that means for a second. He was hired into a job that the people funding it had already decided could not succeed. He was making a record where the ceiling had been installed before he ever walked through the door, and by his own account, he did not know that. He was just happy to be there. And I know you know this feeling. That thing where you find out afterward that the room had already made its decision before you opened your mouth. That everybody was being kind to you about something that was already settled. That is not a music industry feeling. That is a human one. Number 7. No way, dude. While the meetings were already happening, this is the one that gets me. Corabi has said that during his years in the band, he would ask directly. He would go to Nikki and say, "Are you bringing Vince back?" And the answer he got over and over in his telling was, "No way, dude. Never. Not happening." He worked out with Nikki in the mornings. That is the level of proximity we are talking about here. Not a distant bandmate you see at soundcheck. A guy who is in the gym with you at 7 in the morning. And in his account, while he was being told no way, the band had already been meeting with Vince. Taking meetings, working things out. His read on it, years later, is that they were keeping him in their back pocket. In case the Vince thing did not come together, they still had a singer standing by, showing up to rehearsal, writing, believing. Here is the part that turned it completely for me. Corabi does not even sound angry about it now. He has said he gets it. He has called it a smart business move. And he has also said that when they finally told him Vince was coming back, part of him was crushed, and part of him felt like a 300-pound man had stepped off his shoulders. Both things at once. Because there was that much turmoil inside that band. You just made a face. I know you did. Because I made the same one. That is not a firing. A firing is clean. That is being kept warm. That is somebody letting you keep building something they have already quietly decided to take away from you, and then when it was over, Corabi has said the phone simply stopped. He had been the guy at every party, in every limo, invited to everything, and then he was nobody's call. Number 6, Generation Swine, a record built for the wrong man, 1997. The reunion. Vince is back. On paper, everything is fixed. I remember being thrilled about this at the time. I remember being completely wrong about this at the time. Here is what actually happened. Most of the material for Generation Swine had been written and worked up while Corabi was still the singer. Written for his voice, his range, his delivery. Then, with the label pressing hard for the old lineup, Vince was brought back into a record that had been constructed around somebody else. The producer, Scott Humphrey, said it plainly. The songs were not written toward Vince's singing style, or even his range, so the comeback album, The Big Fix, the Everything Is Normal Again record, was a suit tailored for a different man, and listen to how strange it gets from there. On that album, Nikki takes a lead vocal. Tommy takes lead vocals. First time either of them had done that on a Mötley Crüe record. Meanwhile, the accounts of those sessions describe Corabi getting squeezed out of a process he had started, and Mick Mars getting pushed to the edges of it too, to the point where Mick was openly saying this would be his last album with the band. And the exit itself. Corabi has described making an exasperated joke during those sessions. Something like, "Fine, maybe I should just play guitar and not sing." And that got used as the doorway. Everybody lost. Vince has since called the record terrible and blamed too much experimenting. It was the end of their run with Elektra. And this is the bit that gets me. Nobody in this story got what they wanted. Not the label, not Vince, not Corabi, not Mick. 4 grown men and a corporation, all pulling in opposite directions, and the thing that came out the other end is a record none of them defend. Number 5, The Erasure of John Corabi. This one is not a dramatic moment. There is no punch, no meeting, no contract. It is quieter than that. And I think that is exactly why it bothers me more. Years after the fact, long after everyone had moved on, Nikki was still going at Corabi publicly. He has said the 1994 record was unfocused, that it was painful to make, that Corabi could not write lyrics and he had to carry all of it himself. He allowed that Corabi was a nice enough guy, but not one with the fire. And then in 2019, The Dirt came out on Netflix. The big legacy piece, the story of the band, told the way the band wanted it told. John Corabi, the man who fronted Mötley Crüe for roughly 5 years and sang an entire album, appears on screen for a matter of seconds. Seconds. In a 2-hour film about the band's history. I have thought a lot about why that lands so hard, and I think it comes down to this. Getting replaced is a fact of life in music. Getting written out is something else. One of them is losing a job, the other one is being told the job never really happened. And here is the twist that says everything about the man. When a fake story went around later, claiming Corabi was secretly rehearsing to replace Vince all over again, he shut it down himself, publicly, immediately, said the odds of him going back were 0%, and told fans to stop falling for it. He defended the truth of a band that had spent years minimizing him, because he had more interest in the record being straight than in the score being settled. And if you have ever tried to explain to somebody why a record they have never heard of mattered, you know how that conversation goes. Say it anyway. That album is still out there, still waiting. Number 4, Tommy Lee Walks, 1999. 1999. Tommy Lee quits Mötley Crüe, and I want to be careful here, because I do not actually think he is the villain of this one. I think he was suffocating. His own words, looking back, He was creatively dying. Slowly. Not dramatically. Slowly. He said he could not do anything outside of the Mötley format, and he needed an outlet. So he left, and he started Methods of Mayhem, a rap rock project he has described as his adult sandbox. No genres, no style, anything goes. Here is what I did not put together until recently. The timing. He formed that band right as his marriage to Pamela Anderson was ending. He has said he was in a bad place in his life. That was not a career move. That was a man reaching for the only thing he had ever known how to reach for. The album went gold, and then the whole project dissolved inside of a year. But from inside the band, this was still a desertion. Mötley Crüe carried on without their drummer, the guy whose kit rotated. The guy who was as much the visual identity of that band as anybody in it. And notice the pattern forming. Vince gone in 1992, back by 1997. Tommy gone in 1999, back by the mid-2000s. Nobody in this band ever actually leaves. They just take turns being out. And that is its own quiet cruelty when you really think about it. Because if everybody who leaves eventually comes back, then the one guy who never gets to come back is not a departure, he is a decision. Number 3. The contract they signed in front of the world, January 28, 2014, Los Angeles, press conference. And they did something no band had ever done. Mötley Crüe announced their retirement, and to prove it, they signed a cessation of touring agreement, a legally binding document effective at the end of 2015, stating that after that date they could not tour under the name Mötley Crüe, signed in front of global media, with their attorney in the room calling it the first of its kind.
Give this something to look at real quick.
It got framed as the opposite of every ugly rock breakup. Peaceful, mutual, confirmed in writing. Now here's the part I want you to actually feel. People bought tickets on that promise. That farewell run sold over 1 million tickets, 97 shows, $66 million. Every one of those people paid a farewell price for a farewell show. The final concert was New Year's Eve 2015 in Los Angeles. And by the band's own account, the 4 of them walked away afterward and stopped speaking to each other entirely. Then came The Dirt in 2019. Streaming exploded. A whole new generation showed up, and in November of that year they announced they were back, by releasing a video in which they literally blow the contract up. Machine Gun Kelly narrating, an explosion. The line being that destruction had never been a problem for Mötley Crüe. Nicky had said in 2014 that no amount of money would ever make him do it again, because he had too much pride in how they were ending it. Tommy later gave the actual reason, a stadium tour. That was the opportunity, and that is what ended the retirement. And look, I am not going to sit here and pretend I would not go see them. I would. You would. That is exactly the trap. But that contract was not a legal document. It was a marketing device, pointed directly at the people who loved this band enough to pay for a goodbye. That is the one on this list where the person betrayed was you.
Give this something to look at real quick.
Number 2. What was real on that stage and what was not this, is the one I told you about. And I said it changes the song. It does. Producer Bob Rock went on Chris Jericho's podcast and told a story about making Dr. Feelgood. He said that during those sessions, Nicky told him he did not think he had ever really played on any of the Mötley Crüe records. That he figured somebody came in at night and replaced all his parts. That he did not really know how to play bass. Rock's response was essentially, "Too bad you are playing on this one." And then he worked him through it and made him play every note. Now, and this matters, so stay with me, Rock came out days later and clarified. He said it had been taken out of context, that Nicky was being self-deprecating, that the band was newly sober, that Nicky was joking about not remembering. He said at no point did he ever actually believe Nicky did not play on those records, and called him one of the most talented players he has ever worked with. So the headline was wrong. Fine. Good. I am glad. But here is why the story would not leave me alone. It surfaced in 2023, right in the middle of Mick Mars alleging an illegal filing that Nicki did not play a single note on bass across the entire 2022 US tour. And then it got genuinely strange. In response to that lawsuit, the band's own crew signed declarations, the front-of-house engineer included, describing backing tracks being used and attributing it to Mars's inconsistency. One of them acknowledged directly that Mick complained about tracks running while he played, and that this was true, and that it was because of him. And then, weeks later, on the band's own Facebook page, a fan said he had seen the backing tracks tour, and the reply came back in all capital letters: there were no backing tracks for band members. Both of those things came out of the same camp, inside of a few weeks. Nicki has said the band has used enhancement since 1985, which is normal and honest and true of most arena acts. Vince has said Mick was the one on tracks. Their attorney has pointed out that Mars's own expert witness reviewed the footage and agreed the band played live. I am not here to tell you who is lying. I do not know. I am not sure anybody outside that circle does. What I know is that I used to put on Dr. Feelgood and hear 4 guys in a room. Now I hear 4 guys and everything that got argued about afterward, and I cannot get back to before. Some records do not just sound good. They know something about you. And sometimes you find out they know something you did not want to know. Number 1, Mick Mars, 41 years and an emergency meeting. Mick Mars was diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis at 27, a disease that fuses the vertebrae in your spine. It is painful, it is disfiguring, and it does not get better. He played in the biggest metal band in America for 4 decades with that inside his body. Just think about that for 1 second before anything else. October 2022. After the stadium tour, Mick announces he can no longer handle the road. But, and this is the entire case, right here, his statement said he would continue as a member of the band. He was giving up touring, not the band. He said he could still do a residency, still record. The next day, the other 3 put out their own statement saying he had retired. Full stop, no qualification. In his lawsuit, filed in April 2023, Mick alleged that immediately after his announcement, the band convened an emergency shareholders meeting to remove him as a member, as an officer, as a director of the corporations. Not weeks later, immediately, the terms he says he was offered: his 25% of touring profits cut to 5 for that year, then 0 going forward. Same on merchandise. And on any shirt showing the guitarist who replaced him, nothing at all. He alleged that Nicki had spent years telling him he was forgetting chords, that fans were complaining, that his playing was slipping. His attorney's line was that Mick had been pushed around in that band for far too long, and they were not going to let it continue. The band's position was the opposite, that retiring from touring is resigning. That a 2008 agreement Mick himself voted for and signed said a resigning shareholder receives nothing attributable to live performance. And that despite owing them nothing, they had offered him a generous package to honor his career, and he refused it. And then he said the thing I have not been able to shake. He said that in 2022, on the tour, in the stadiums, every single night, nobody spoke to him. He said a lot of the time it felt like he was playing by himself. That you can be in a crowd of people and still be completely alone. That he felt used, and sad, and inferior. And that when the last show ended in Las Vegas, what he mostly felt was relief. He said the wounds were not shallow ones. He said they were the kind you do not get over. January 29, 2026. Final arbitration. Retired federal judge Patrick J. Walsh ruled that Neil, Six, and Lee were within their rights to remove him as an officer and director. Mick must sell his ownership stake in Mötley Crüe to the other 3 for $505,737. He was found to owe $750,030 in advances against 69 shows he did not play. subtract one from the other, and the founding guitarist of Mötley Crüe owes the band $244,293. Their attorney said the band had been fully vindicated. Legally, financially, factually. And here is the line I keep coming back to, because the judge said it himself. He acknowledged that Mick argued it was immoral to be cast aside after forming the backbone of this group for more than 4 decades, purely because his age and his illness meant he could not perform. And the judge said he was not unsympathetic to that argument, but that it was not his job, in the context of an arbitration, to weigh in on the morality of the band's decision. Not unsympathetic, but not his job. That is the sentence. Right there. Legally, they were allowed to. Whether they should have was a different question, and no court was ever going to answer it. Vince left and came back. Tommy left and came back. Mick got sick.